And in just a couple of months, my daughter will be born into a world that is vastly shaped by the decisions we're making today. And when I think about the world she'll grow up in, the climate predictions are unsettling. So here's what we already know. In the next decade, we are projected to cross 1.5 degrees of warming, a threshold scientists have warned will dramatically intensify heat, floods, droughts, and crop failures. We're already living through the hottest years in record. 2025 was the hottest one. And the big irony is, most of you know, right? The African continent covers about 20% of the world land area, making it the second largest continent by landmass on the planet, but it contributes something around 2 to 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. How staggering is that? And yet, according to the World Meteorological Organization, Africa is warming faster than the global average. And that rising heat is intensifying extreme weather events and health crises. Around 250 million people already live under high water stress, and that number could even reach 700 million by 2030, right? Climate pressure is already contributing to declining agricultural productivity growth, rising hunger, food insecurity all across the continent. We're very familiar with that data, right? The usual sentence that we hear is, those who contribute the least suffer the most. It's true, right? But it's also incomplete. So I want to take you through a journey of imagination. It's 2050. Sub-Saharan Africa looks very different from the headlines you remember. Electric buses move quietly through cities. Solar panels power homes, clinics, schools, on and off the grid. Food systems are resilient. Water use is precise. And healthcare reaches people before crises do. This may sound completely unrealistic, or at least unattainable. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the path to this vision is simple or smooth. There are real barriers from political risk, financing gaps, regulation, failure along the way. But what future thinking teaches us is that we need to start looking at what's already happening today. We need to start shifting our focus to how local trends are actually happening. So how people move, how people pay, how people farm, how they access care right now. And what we see is that if we look closely at those lines, the kind of future that is emerging is very, very different from the one we usually imagine. Not a future that is based on scarcity or vulnerability, but one that is building out of local innovation, resilience, that takes challenge and turns it into opportunity. So I'm going to show you a few examples from different systems, different sectors, not from the future, but from right now, from solutions that are actually being implemented and that are working, and that are slowly assembling that climate smart vision we just glimpsed. Let's go. Okay. Transport. So globally, transport is one of the fastest growing sources of emissions globally. And in many countries, public transportation systems are aging, polluting, super expensive to replace. But in parts of Africa, something different is happening. In Kenya, Basigo is deploying electric buses from day one, right? With charging infrastructure, pay-as-you-go financing models, making it easier and affordable for operators to adopt. In Rwanda, Ampersand is developing electric motorcycle fleets that are not kind of upgrading from combustion engines. They are completely skipping them, right? So we're not talking about retrofitting old systems. We're talking about building clean mobility from the very beginning. Okay, thank you. Energy. Energy sits under everything. So we all know across sub-Saharan Africa, hundreds of millions of households never had access to electricity to begin with, and in many nations, grid access is highly unreliable. But that gap became an opening. So companies like M-Kopa in Kenya and dozens of very similar companies throughout the continent are deploying solar panels through pay-as-you-go systems to millions of households that are now able to not only power their homes and charge their phones, but run their businesses without waiting for grid expansion to arrive. And once energy exists, a lot of other systems unlock. Take agriculture. Climate change is hitting farmers first and hardest. We know that, drought, changing rain patterns, and soil degradation is highly affecting farmers already. I mean, climate change is real. Just ask a farmer anywhere in Africa and they'll tell you that. But in Kenya, Kenya is a pretty large innovation center in the continent, Sun Culture has developed solar-powered water pumps that provide reliable irrigation year-round to farmers, practically eliminating their dependency on rain and fossil fuels, allowing them to increase their yields and reduce labor and costs. But beyond that, if we're talking about technology development, Farmerline in Ghana is using mobile platforms and data intelligence to deliver climate-smart farming advice, flexible financing, and market access to millions of farmers, basically routing information and resources to where they're needed the most. So these systems are designed to face uncertainty. Now let's talk about health. Climate change is also a health crisis, right? Changing patterns of diseases, droughts, heat, they're all already stretching fragile systems. But also here, local innovation is taking the lead. So in Tanzania, Medicare is improving the access to medicine and climate-linked healthcare to millions of people, basically reducing shortages and costs. Zipline in Rwanda and beyond, they pioneered the use of drones to deliver blood and life-saving medicine to millions of people bypassing washed-out roads, traffic, distance, and it's already happening right now. Oop. Oh, what happened? Sorry, no. There we go. So what connects all of these systems? That's right, affordability. And affordability in many cases is powered by mobile money. Pay-as-you-go energy, usage-based transport, micropayments for water, health, and insurance. Mobile money doesn't just move funds around, it actually powers the climate solutions that could be reachable at scale. And these climate solutions are being, thank you, these climate solutions are being tested right now in Africa by Africans. So that leads me to my final question. What's Israel's role into all of this, right? So definitely not as a donor and not as a savior. We all know that Israel doesn't have unlimited grant capital like a lot of other countries do. But what we do have is deep strengths and expertise in climate tech, in agri-tech, in AI, in water, in systems design. And the question is, do we see African markets as places of risk or as places of relevance and opportunity, right? If we want to remain the global innovation leader that we usually see ourselves as, we have to shift our focus from just looking at America, the US and Europe, and we need to start looking at where the systems of the future are actually being tested right now. The systems of mobility, energy, agriculture, food, and health. They're being built in emerging markets right now. So, how can we take part, We want the Israeli innovation, the opportunity for the Israeli innovation ecosystem is to integrate with local ecosystems, is to co-build, to invest, to partner, and to learn from these ecosystems that are already building the future. And that's exactly the kind of vision that drives our mission at Nura Global Innovation Lab. So finally, if we look at what is currently happening in Sub-Saharan Africa, we see not only innovation, we see direction. And these locally led solutions are not catching up to the world, they're rehearsing the future. And that future is based on decentralization, affordability, resilience, and speed. So the question for us is not whether this future is coming or not. It is, it's coming. But it's where we choose to take part. Do we want to shift our focus to where it's actually happening and see ourselves as part of it, as partners, or not? Thank you.